Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, where social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all-around nerds convene, talk, and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello and good evening, everyone.
And I am your host / Time Lord wannabe, the Brainstormer of Pop Culture. How is everyone doing it this night?
I'm doing alright, I think.
I as well. Unfortunately, I am a bit bummed because Dalton and I were in the midst of a fascinating conversation before we appeared on stream.
Which always seems to happen.
Yeah. Thursday, though. Thursday. Yeah, so got some things. Not a whole lot this week for like guys like us to really talk about, honestly. Like none really of interest grabbed us, mostly. So let's just, with the first one. This is from cosmicbook.com. Been a very long time since we covered anything from them. Netflix adapting Grendel Dark Horse comic book. It's by Will Harrigan. It's posted September 14th, 2021. Hey, Don, would you mind telling me, when I sent this to you the first time and you said yes, what did you think this was about?
I assumed it was some sort of alternate take on Grendel from Beowulf, because that's what that name means.
I'm honestly surprised you haven't heard about this comic.
I have heard of it, but again, I thought it was kind of a, viewing the events of Beowulf from a different perspective, or taking the villain Beowulf and putting him in, like, different context kind of comic.
It's a street level 90s anti-hero deal.
That's such a waste.
Oh my god, dude.
In comparison to what I was imagining, like an I, Frankenstein, but for Grendel, from Beowulf, that's kind of disappointing.
My god, you are such a picky bitch.
You're goddamn right.
Alright, okay, so Netflix has greenlit Grendel, an all-new series based on the masked vigilante from the popular award-winning Matt Wagner Dark Horse comic books. Based on Matt Wagner's groundbreaking comic book series, Grendel follows Hunter Rose, a gifted fencer, writer, and assassin, as seeking to avenge the death of a lost love. Goes to war with New York's criminal underworld, only to realize why beat them when you can join them. Well, that doesn't sound too bad.
I mean, it sounds interesting. I'm just part of me is worried that Netflix shouldn't adapt more graphic novels at this point. At least not until we see how Sandman turns out. Um, just because I don't want them to spread their resources too thin. But I'm assuming this is still kind of in the conceptual phase, because if it weren't, we would probably know more about it by now. I'm assuming this was one of those things that was just announced a couple months ago, maybe,
Mm.
or even sooner than that. So it's still early days for it, but yeah, I'm just hoping that Netflix doesn't spread its resources too thin. 'Cause they need everything they can get for Sandman to be done correctly.
Mhm.
Hello?
Sorry, I was looking. Abu, 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 a bu, Bubacon, whatever the fuck his name is, leads the series as titular vigilante hero Grendel slash Hunter Bros. And I looked up the actor. Hasn't been in a whole lot, but seems like a fine actor.
Well, maybe this is one of those giving a big break to a fairly unknown person so far.
Uh, Apparently, he was in a series on Stars that I've heard about. Power.
Ah,
Yeah, and it's not. I don't think it's a show you're into. You would be into.
no, I've heard of it, but I've never seen an episode of it.
It's not about superpowers. I
No, I
think.
know it's
I
about
think it's.
political machinations and bullshit, like
Mm,
House of Cards or The West Wing or whatever.
no, I think it's like a crime story.
What is it today in people's extremely counterproductive, like, or misleading titles of shit?
I think you just don't. I think you just have too much of a wild imagination that you constantly think of something without actually looking into it first.
Well,
Like, don't,
it's not my fault if my version of the story is better than the one they actually bothered to come up with.
so your thought for power was for political things.
Yeah, like a West Wing or a House of Cards or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
What, you've never seen West Wing or House of Cards?
Not my style.
Fair enough, I guess.
Yeah. The sporting cast
Either
includes.
that or like a or like an American variation on Chernobyl that involves like a destruction of a power plant being destroyed or something.
It's like The Wire or something. I think you've never seen that, have you?
I know of it. I can't be arsed to have watched it yet. If I find out it's free on Hulu or something, I might check it out. But beyond that,
You know,
I have no interest.
there's a really cool character that seems a lot like you, Don, because he's kind of a sociopath.
Thank you.
Anyway, the supporting cast includes Brittany Allen, Julian Black, and Antelope, Kevin Corrigan, Emma Ho, Andy Mintis, Jamie Ray Newman, Eric Palladino, and Madeline Zima. I don't know these actors. Like
Yeah,
if I saw their images, maybe I don't know.
well, to IMDb to find out, I guess.
I'm good. Uh,
Okay.
well, I just want to get through this one because I feel like we don't really have much to say for it, honestly.
hmm I would have had a bunch to say if it were the actual,
Oh
if
my
it were
god,
actually the version of Grendel that I was thinking of, but
get
never
the
mind.
fuck over it, dude. Jesus. The series has been around since the '90s, so you've had 20 years to know about it. So you're kind of you're kind of the one at fault here.
Again, it's not my fault that I came up with a better version of this premise than you did, or rather, the people who made this did.
You corrected yourself there. I'm good now.
Yes, I didn't mean you. I was talking like you as in the general you, but you
Anyway,
know what I mean.
Andrew Dabb will serve as writer and showrunner, who is known for Resident Evil and Supernatural.
Now, see, again, if you were doing a different version of this that actually involved kind of a modern
And,
take on
and
Grendel, that would be reasonable, like, bona fides for the
God,
showrunner or such a thing.
it's over. Okay, it's a set thing. Deal with it.
Like, even the show itself is thinking, why are we not doing this actually like Grendel?
Okay, and when they got Supernatural guys to run the boys. Okay, what's your point?
Well, tonally, Supernatural and the boys were similar, I guess, so that kind of makes sense. Of course, that was mostly because Eric Kripke wanted to be a cynical asshole again.
Anyway, I couldn't be more thrilled about the Grendel saga, one of the longest running independent comic series, finally being translated into live action for the screen, said Wagner in a statement. Under the sharp guidance of showrunner Andrew Dabb, our incredible creative team, sure to be stellar cast, and Dark Horse Entertainment have teamed with Netflix to produce this provocative adaptation that will bring my characters and concepts to an all-new
Well,
audience and yet still provide excitement and surprises for diehard fans.
one thing's for sure, it will at least probably be better than the recent Hellboy movie.
That's not saying much, though.
No, but I mean, in terms of Dark Horse properties, it will at least be better than the who the fuck was the director of the recent Hellboy one that wasn't Del Toro?
Doesn't matter.
No, I'm annoyed now that I can't think of his name because he was also a showrunner on 2014 Constantine. Marshall something.
Oh no. Neil Marshall.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And to be fair, I think it was mostly the result of studio meddling that it didn't turn out well. I'm not blaming Neil Marshall for the travesty that was 2017 Hellboy, I think.
2019.
2020 lasted forever.
Oh, shit.
It feels like it should be 3 years ago.
It's technically been 2 years, so. Okay. Sorry. I'm tired. I'm especially excited to see Abubakar. I don't fucking know how to say this name.
Dude, get a publicist. It will make it easier for you to become a famous actor if people can actually pronounce your name.
Bring the character of Grendel / Hunter Rose to life. He has charisma, style, and vital edginess that I've been envisioning in the role for years. Okay, executive producers include Dark Horse Entertainment's Mike Richardson, The Umbrella Academy, Hellboy, Keith Goldberg, The Umbrella Academy, Resident Alien, Chris Tone, Polar, Splinter, and Wagner.
I mean, that is a good point. I didn't remember that that Umbrella Academy was Dark Horse. But yes, if it's as good as Umbrella Academy, then we're off to the races. That show's amazing. And also, when are we getting a season 3?
Series will consist of 8 episodes and is a Netflix production and comes out of Netflix's first look deal with Dark Horse Entertainment. Okay, and then where the fuck are all the properties of? Never mind, I'm not getting into that.
Hellboy the live action series when?
Anyway,
Or BPRD the series when?
there's also that in like the Miller World stuff or Millar World.
Yeah.
We barely gotten any of that, and that was signed 5 years ago.
Well, that's because people were butthurt about Jupiter's Legacy not being deconstructive and didn't give it a chance. I bet if it had done gangbusters like they expected it to, we'd be getting Millar stuff every 5 minutes, which honestly would be a better state of affairs, frankly, for me, because Jupiter's Legacy was awesome, and y'all are a bunch of bitches for sleeping on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Netflix, Dark Horse previously collaborated on the popular series The Umbrella Academy. Jonas Ackerlund's feature film Polar with Mads Mikkelsen. I haven't seen that one. I want to see it. I just haven't gotten around to it.
I haven't seen it either, but if it has Mads Mikkelsen in it, I'll probably give it a try.
Yeah, and they are currently in production on the animated series Samurai Rabbit: The Usagi Chronicles.
Okay, if animated series are options, then again, where is my Hellboy the animated series, please? They've already done 2 animated Hellboy movies. It can be done, so do it.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for news. I mean, like they have a list here for yeah, they have a list here for the cast. But yeah, that's whatever. Okay, give me a second while I pull up the second one. I don't know much about the series, and honestly, if I would ever watch it again, how mostly it goes is judge it by its own merit instead of the comic.
I probably will try it because we've covered it here, but it doesn't really sound much like the kind of thing I'm into.
Picky as
Granted, granted, initially when I first heard about Umbrella Academy, that didn't sound like my thing either, and that had freaking hyper intelligent chimps and shit. So I've been wrong before about Dark Horse properties, so hopefully I'm wrong again. But also Netflix, if you wanted a slightly more comedic version of the Twilight Zone or X-Files or Men in Black, you could make a BPRD series. Could even be animated. It'd be awesome. Get the people who did Tresse to do it, or the people who did Blood of Zeus to do it.
honestly, I'd prefer Tresse.
Yeah, it would lend itself more to Tresse's style. That's why I listed them first. But honestly,
Although
most of the in-house like quasi anime that Netflix does has been pretty good. So anyone from like the artistic team of any of their animated stuff would probably be pretty good.
I honestly just want to see like maybe some people do the like if they're doing like stuff set in like the Mignola verse. Mike Mignola
Mhm.
is like the creator of Hellboy. For anyone who doesn't know
Yeah,
that, honestly,
right.
I prefer to see that. I prefer them see it replicate that art style.
Yeah, and again, there have already been 2 animated Hellboy movies, so you can do it in animation. It can be done. And honestly, if I'm being really honest, like real talk for a second, both of the animated Hellboy movies were better than Golden Army was, and we don't even need to talk about the 2019 version. So yeah, BPRD the animated series win.
Okay, so this is from GeekTyrant.com. First look at Guillermo del Toro's upcoming movie Nightmare Alley. There's also a trailer, but we had watched. I had watched it, and there really wasn't much there, unfortunately. Like I think it was kind of like a teaser trailer, if anything. So
Yeah, it was trying to tease something, and it almost felt like we, the audience, were being like pitched a sideshow, which I think is the vibe that we're going for it. So again, good on you, Guillermo del Toro. Although at this point, I am mostly convinced that Guillermo del Toro can do no wrong because every time I see a Guillermo del Toro project, I fall in love with it.
okay,
So yay.
okay. Don't being a very biased fanboy aside, it's the first look at Guillermo del Toro's upcoming movie Nightmare Alley. This was written by Joey Parr, and this was published on September 15th, 2021. Okay, so come on. Okay, 20th Century has shared a couple first look photos from director Guillermo del Toro's upcoming film project, Nightmare Alley. Uh, damn it, will you fucking work, you piece of shit.
Computer. Technical difficulties, folks.
Yeah. Right. It's his first movie since his Academy Award-winning film, The Shape of Water. Judging from the photos below, it looks like it'll be a great-looking film. The film is based on a 1946 novel by William Lindsay Gresham and stars Kate Blanchett, Bradley Cooper, Rooney Mara, Toni Collette, Willem Dafoe, Holt McCallany, Ron Perlman, Richard Jenkins, and David Strathairn. Said any of those names wrong, I'm sorry.
I think Stormare, the last one, but I could be wrong.
No, it's like Strathairn.
Okay, well then it must be a different guy. But anyway, based on that cast and the fact that it's Guillermo del Toro, I would tentatively say shut up and take my money. But I don't know shit about Nightmare Alley, the book it's based on, and I suspect that I will have to become more familiar with said novel to know what we're getting here.
Okay, you'll see many of these actors in images that were released in Nightmare Alley. An ambitious young Carney Cooper with a talent for manipulating people with a few well-chosen words hooks up with a female psychiatrist, Blanchett, who is even more dangerous than he is. The carnival cast includes carnival worker Molly, Ed Barker, Clem, Willem Dafoe, and Ron Perlman as Bruno the Strongman. Richard Jenkins is part of the high society crowd as wealthy industrialist Ezra Grendel.
I find it a little bit ironic that twice in this stream now, one of the characters has had the name Grendel somewhere in the middle. And we did start talking about Guillermo del Toro in the last segment because of Dark Horse. So, yeah.
Del Toro says this is going to be a very different movie from the other films that he usually makes. He explained in an interview with Vanity Fair. I'm not going to do any of the cliches associated with the genre. I'm not going to do the niche Venetian.
Uh, mm, I got nothing. I don't need like I might know what that word means if I heard it, but don't. I can't translate that into a word I know
I'm not
so
going
far.
to the Venetian blinds. Oh, like you remember, like in those old noir films, uh, where it's like the light of the blinds hitting a person's face,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and voiceover and detectives walking with fedoras in wet streets. I wanted to do the universe of the novel, which is a little gritty but also strangely magical. It has a very strange mystical lure and mythical. I was very attracted to that possibility.
On the one hand, I'm kind of a little sad because seeing Guillermo del Toro's take on a noir movie would be awesome. But on the other, um, you're speaking my language. Give me all the turn of the century mysticism you can, especially the weird sideshow carnival variety, Mr. Del Toro. You are
Uh,
speaking my language.
I'm really curious to see what the filmmaker has planned for this one. It definitely sounds like a different kind of movie for Del Toro. The script of which he co-wrote with Kim Morgan, The Forbidden Room. His goal for the film was to bring the dark, raw world and language of William Gresham to the screen, and now we are joined by a superb group of artists and technicians to bring it to life.
Again, it's a Guillermo del Toro movie, and it's about a sideshow phenomena in the early 20th century, so or late 19th. So this is one of those, unless something unforeseeably horrible goes wrong, this sounds like it's right up my alley. But I'm kidding.
Mm. This movie is set to be released in 2021, and here are photos that were released.
Oh wait,
First,
it's coming out in 2021? That's awfully quick. Because this is the first I'm hearing about it, and the trailer was just released like a couple days ago.
maybe December or something.
It's possible, or it might just be it was moved because COVID.
I don't know. Okay, so here's the
Though
first.
this does sound like an interesting like Halloween movie.
Mm-hmm. So here's the first image we have Bradley Cooper's character and Kate Blanchett's character. See, this is why I think there are. I never get it why there are so many movies that have like you know how I always complain with like superhero movies and like the color is always bland and stuff.
Hmm.
Guillermo del Toro knows color so much. Like it's you can see it throughout all
Yeah,
of.
he has a unique visual style that's very much um that was very much born out of this kind of aesthetic. So that's what that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to see him take on this. But anyway, I'm gonna have to dip out because my screen froze and I need to be able to see things to judge pictures.
Okay. Give me a moment, folks.
Yeah, okay. Now I can see things. Yay.
God damn it! Like, and I speak as a filmmaker, and I haven't done that in a very long time.
Okay, get the drinks ready, folks.
No, it's just like God. I love how it looks. Like it's
But
very
yeah,
cinematic.
he actually has a color palette to speak of.
Not even that. Not just that. It's just like it's cinematic, and I've said that with a few movies we've like trailers and stuff we've talked about. And
Yeah,
like I,
the way the light is caught, it almost looks like you could draw over it.
yeah, yeah, and like see, I'm of the belief more often than not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I've worked like I've done drawing, I've done paneling for comics and stuff like my own comics, like uh, like personal stuff when I was like a kid and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
I've studied filmmaking for like over a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
When you like, and this kind of my philosophy when it comes to like making stuff is like every frame, and I might be borrowing from something, but every frame of like a movie or whatever you're doing basically can be like its own like picture, like its own painting, you know?
Yeah. It's film is supposed to be a work of art, god damn it.
Yeah. Okay. There's another one, Bradley Cooper, and um, yeah, it's really cool looking.
Yeah, I just wish I knew more about what the plot was, but I can resolve that by doing more research.
Huh? Well, it's
Hmm.
terrifying. Like it's oddly alluring, but also like a sense of unease due to like the eyes around the circle.
Yeah, I'm. This is the first shot that has me genuinely like smirking like a kid in a candy store here, because I've actually read and own a book that is a bunch of Guillermo del Toro's sketchbooks and diaries that he's published. It's called Cabinet of Curiosities,
Oh
or that's
yeah.
what it's published as. And this looks exactly like something right out of his like aesthetic, and I can tell exactly kind of the vibe he's going for now with this. So
Mhm.
yay.
Yeah, I really am not the same. It's really good stuff.
Guillermo del Toro again doing a early 20th or late 19th century carnival sideshow movie with presumably his added mystical flair, as stated here. Um, just shut up and take all my money. And
Mhm.
anytime Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro work together, that is also an automatic shut up and take my money. So shut up and take my money twice.
Mhm. Yeah, I gotta say I'm intrigued. I just kind of want to wait until like there's like another trailer.
Yeah, I don't have enough to go on plot wise, but it's called Nightmare Alley, and with the way Guillermo was describing it and the way the aesthetic looks, I have to believe this is a better version of basically the Cirque du Freak movie from a couple years from actually it was more than a couple years ago. It was like 2011 or something.
Yeah, I actually
But
saw. I actually read those books.
yeah,
Well, I read the manga adaptations of them.
yeah, because it looks like a cross between Cirque du Freak the Vampire's Assistant and a better version of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. So if that's kind of the vibe we're going for here, then just this is going to become my favorite movie, and I hope it wins Oscars pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want bonus points from me, Guillermo, give me a weird gypsy what does all the mystical exposition halfway through the movie.
I will say the movie adaptation is not as good as
No,
the.
the Cirque du Freak movie wasn't great, but it did at least have an interesting like aesthetic and concept,
Mhm.
which I assume it mostly borrowed from the book because duh.
Yeah, will say, like,
It really is a shame that never justified a sequel.
I will say it's one of the few book series that kind of had an emotional response for me, just because the ending's kind of like a bittersweet ending. I don't want to get too much.
Oh, what happened?
Little time travel shenanigans to where, like, because like the main character, basically the life they taken by being the vampire's assistant
Mm-hmm.
kind of ended with a very bad, kind of bitter ending.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, he traveled back in time and stopped his younger self from seeing stuff and all that. And it
Aw.
got like a set of events and thus erasing him and his timeline and stuff. And it's just like it is kind of sad, just because like there are people that were like friendships that will never be, maybe.
Yeah, there's a price to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a bummer ending.
But like he did it so like people that he knows and cares about get to live, hopefully, that died in his timeline. It's a whole thing. It's sad just because like
I'm of two minds on this then,
yeah, no, me
because
too. It's like it's a whole thing. Like I don't. A part of me kind of wish they could just like, because for me, I'm not really one for to do like how I feel like about like the continuity resets for like comics and stuff.
yeah, it's a bad idea just in general, but especially when there's a contrived emotional reason to do things, then because the adult, and I hate using this term, but the adult response is just play the chips where they lie, don't fuck around with space and time, just learn to learn to see the beauty in your timeline, basically, is the long and the short of it. But now, not only are we erasing a timeline, but we're erasing a timeline that had a bunch of weird mystical shit in it so that
No,
a
no,
character can have a quote unquote normal life, and I hate that shit.
that's. I mean, the mystical stuff's still there. It's just like the main character isn't involved in it anymore.
No, I know, but as a result, basically the entire, like, his awakening to the fact that all this stuff exists, is not there. It's the freaking Prospero ending of I'm going to turn my back on all of this new stuff that I've learned because reasons.
If you read through the series, I think you'd get a better idea of it. You probably still wouldn't like it. I still kind of don't like it, but at least you get it. Is the thing.
No, it's not that I don't understand from the character's perspective why he does it. It's just whenever a character makes that kind of choice, it pisses me off, especially when it involves rewriting time and space like instead of just learning to live with your like you open the door, you open the Pandora's box and whatnot. So live with your goddamn consequences, please. Nobody,
Honestly, would have
no,
been more.
no, nobody should get
Okay,
nobody should
don't,
get to
don't,
completely. Hmm, Go ahead.
nah, like you've said this stuff before and all, so
Hmm.
like we get it. It's just that how the book goes, man. We have no control over that. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
this one Dolan sent me. The only thing Dolan sent me, actually, which is super weird.
Hmm.
This is by Bill Willingham. It's published August 28th. Why the fuck are we covering this now?
Because I just now learned that it existed because Englentine did a video on it.
I want to check up the. Like, I didn't look up this name before. But yeah, when our hearts were young and gay. So hold on. What? Huh. This might. Is this the same guy? I don't know if it's the same guy. Hold on. Okay, I'm not entirely sure because I looked up this guy, but I don't know if it's the same guy or not. So yeah, When Our Hearts Were Young and Gay, this is by Bill Willingham, published August 28th. So then Tim Drake is gay now. See? And yeah, we covered like Tim Drake being bisexual, not gay, but
Yeah, because that's not how this shit's supposed to fucking work.
honestly, it's I don't have a problem with it. It's more so the overblown nature of it that I guess is the problem.
Yeah, it's like why is this the focus of the character now?
Yeah.
And are you going to actually make his relationships a key part of the? Because this is the thing that pisses me off about this whole sexuality thing, and I'm speaking as the gay one, so just
Oh,
before anyone listening goes, yeah, before anyone listening goes, oh, you're just homophobic, derp. No, can't be. It is impossible. But point being, I find it annoying when character sexualities are introduced and there's never a romantic subplot in the story. Um, because if you're going to bring up a non-standard sexuality, then actually do something with it. And when the thing in question is a sexual and romantic orientation, tell a romance story, goddammit, or at least give a romance subplot. If you're not gonna do it, then there's no reason functionally to introduce it into the story. Like Brainstorm and I are currently working on a story that very much does revolve around the sexuality of a certain character. But you know what we did? We actually made it a key feature of the story. We didn't just introduce the fact that the character was effectively asexual for most of the story and then never bring it up again. It is a key feature of his character development because of how our story works out. I'm not going to say anything more about it. But point being, if you're going to introduce something that specific about a character's identity, that atypical about a character's identity, then actually play the ball where it lies and have a romance goddamn subplot. If the character has a non-standard sexuality, have them explore said non-standard sexuality through a romantic relationship, please. Otherwise, just don't bring it up.
I'm back.
Okay,
Yeah.
next.
This recent revelation has been dealt with both pro and con to an exhaustive extent in other articles, videos, and so forth. So I won't retread that here. Even though I wrote the character of Tim Drake for just over a year of his Robin run, he's not mine. I didn't create him. Though the retroactive legal magic of work for hire DC Comics created him, owns him, and can do whatever it in its corporate wisdom it wants with him. I mean, there are points being made, but
Yeah, the main point I would make is just because they own him doesn't give them the license to do whatever they want with him.
I mean, kind of does.
Well, legally, sure, but I'm talking about in the context of you're a comic book company and you make art.
Do you really think anyone thinks like that anymore?
No, but that's the goddamn problem. Because throughout this entire article, he waxes lyrical about twisting the character this way and that way, but he doesn't ever once consider the fact of what would the character actually want? What serves the character and the storytelling in the world best?
Here's kind of my problem, specifically with like Tim Drake. The dude constantly gets shafted by DC.
Because they don't know what to do with him.
Like I think the only thing he's ever really been given much credit on is like the Young Justice run in the '90s.
Yeah, because Robin, or yeah, and I just did it. Dick Grayson is the good boy, is the golden child, who does that, who does everything effectively that Batman wanted him to do, and becomes his own character in his own right.
Mhm.
Jason Todd is the black sheep of the family who does a bunch of edgy shit.
I wouldn't say black sheep per se, at least now. Maybe when he started as Red Hood, sure. It's
Well,
complicated.
but I mean like his entire. I'm taking his entire character history into account here.
Okay,
He,
fair
he
enough, fair enough.
he's I mean more in terms of what he is to the overall like story of the Bat family. Jason Todd is the black sheep and the the edgy kid.
Mhm.
Um and Damien is the problem child who thinks he's daddy's favorite because reasons.
Then you have Barbara. I mean, she's more of a friend of the family, like with her father.
Yeah, she's almost like an adopted sister. But point being, in terms of the Robins and the larger Bat family, Tim Drake has always just been the one that comes after the ones that people know better.
There's like a video essay by this essayist called Sage's Reign. Great essayist, by the way. Really great essayist. I'd totally recommend. Like, I think you'd like his videos, Don't, honestly.
Mm.
I mean, granted, he covers like kind of basic stuff, like he's covered like stuff like done Superman, Batman, Batman's family, and stuff. Not
Mm-hmm.
really. He's done some Avatar stuff. I think it's like
Yeah, cool.
I'll send you some at some point. Right, so to remember.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah,
Anyway,
what I was getting at is like he did an essay about Tim Drake, and like Tim Drake is like he's Batman's partner because like he has a family of his own. He's not an orphan, as it's like as it's said in like because they made Tim Drake in the animated series Jason Todd for some reason.
well, mostly probably because they didn't think they could get away with doing Jason Todd. Um,
And yet turning Drake into the fucking Joker, like honestly, it would have made more sense with Jason Todd. To be fair, but whatever. Like everyone's gonna be fucked over by the Joker somehow.
yeah, it really would have made sense to give the Return of the Joker storyline to Jason instead of Tim, but now everybody is ruined by the Joker. Robert gets shot, Dick gets traumatized, and now Tim gets freaking
Well, Jason,
lobotomized. And yeah, and Jason just straight up dies again. Because they oscillate between Jason being the edgy boy and just not being there because shot.
legitimately, if there was a real life Joker, there's no way the guy wouldn't have been put on death row after like the first mayhem he caused.
Well, I mean, well, I guess is okay because Gotham. Now I'm thinking in terms of in universe logistics. Gotham is in or near New Jersey. I do not know if New Jersey is a death penalty state still or not.
I think there had to be the exception with a guy like the Joker.
But that would be the if I were writing or if I were allowed to have input on a Batman story, that would be my out as to why none of Batman's rogues get the death penalty, even though they very evidently deserve it, most of them. Um, just the fact that Gotham doesn't exist in a death penalty state.
I feel like that's a cop out though.
Well, it is, but it's the kind of cop out that A makes sense for the story and B would exist in real life. So,
Okay, fair enough. I just again,
honestly, I think it'd be an interesting dynamic to play with because we see a lot of anti-death penalty stories. We see a lot of pro-death penalty stories, but we never see stories that just kind of play the ball where it lies and go, okay, fine, you don't like the death penalty. There's reasons to not like it, but let's put it in the context of super villains, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, darn, maybe we should make an exception for this.
yeah. Anyway, we went.
Plus, it makes Arkham make a hell of a lot more sense if they can't kill them.
But granted, most of them do the insanity plea, which let's be honest, most of them aren't, or
Well,
sociopathic. Not
yeah, I mean, it very much depends on what the definitions of insanity we're working with here are, but
Legally,
um,
legal. I guess.
most of the Batman villains are perfectly capable of understanding right and wrong, and are willingly choosing to do wrong, and that is the it, in in real life, that is the distinction between competent to stand trial and not competent to stand trial. If it can be demonstrated that either a person is cognitively deficient enough they don't understand what they did, which wouldn't work for most of the Batman villains, or if it can be demonstrated that their neurology is such that they literally do not understand the difference between right and wrong. Either of those two can qualify as legally incompetent to stand trial and therefore not guilty by reason of insanity. And most of Batman's villains are very, very, very high functioning, so that first one's not gonna fly. So it's gotta be the second one if we're going within any plausible real world standards here.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, uh, right. But I want to deal just a bit with the other guy, the fellow Tim Drake plans to be gay with. Uh, God, that sounds really. That's a poor way to word it, to be fair. But I
It,
don't.
yeah, it's not doing you any favors, friend.
Okay. The character's name is Bernard Dowd, and I created him. Here's his first appearance in my first issue writing Robin. Uh, and then there's the panel here. I kind of want to read the whole dialogue here.
Okay.
Um, I mean, yeah, he's always talking about a girl and stuff, so. But, he could be bisexual. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it happens, and also, or he could be covering his ass, because that is also a thing that sometimes you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay, so moving forward.
yep.
Yes, I know when dealing with work for hire, it means DC Comics actually created him, as I admitted above. But for the retroactive reality imposed itself, I conceived the character, wrote his first appearance, wrote many subsequent appearances, and decided who he would be and who he wouldn't be. Only then, by submitting those stories and accepting DC's paycheck, the magic kicked in, and it turns out DC created everything all along. Again, he's not.
That's how publication works, yes. Unfortunately, you have to give the publisher some credit, especially when you're working in an established and expansive universe.
See, this is why I prefer to always work in independence now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. If I could write a story for like DC or Marvel for a character I like, sure. But I guess I'm not.
I wouldn't care unless DC purposefully tried to fuck my interpretation of a character over, because I actually do in the background of my head basically have a way to fix Dr. Fate that would basically be equivalent to something like Neil Gaiman's Sandman. But my stipulation would be, if I go through the effort of fixing Dr. Fate for you, DC, don't fuck it up again in the next cycle, please. It I'm not saying it can never be changed, but at least give it room to breathe where it's fixed. Because I would really hate to go through all that effort of creating a new canon for Dr. Fate and fixing the character because he's been broken for the last 40 years, and then have him be broken again the next time somebody thinks they have a clever idea of something to do with the possession retcon version. Because I've been getting annoyed just thinking about it. But anyway, moving on.
Mm-hmm. As originally conceived, Bernard Dowd was many things, but he wasn't gay. I can know this for a certainty because, unlike living historical figures, it's possible to know the secret inner workings of a fiction character because they are whatever the author wrote them to be.
I
I mean,
fundamentally disagree on that on some level, but never mind.
Baseline, if you're like creating a character, kinda.
I mean, but it becomes a question of how much control do you have over your own mind. And again, if we're looking at this from the like metaphysical perspective of ideas exist somewhere out there in the world, and your brain kind of just picks up on them like, you know, radios receive radio transmissions, basically. How much of that is your how much of that do you get credit for, especially because, as I'm sure you can confirm, sometimes ideas will just come up and whack you upside the head
Yeah,
from randomly nowhere.
yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
so yeah, I know what he's getting at, and I know it's in the context of arguing with DC. Well, we just own everything because stupid bullshit. But on some level, I fundamentally disagree that the author has that much control over characters, or should. The moment you begin to become an interventionist god in your own story is the moment where that story probably shouldn't be yours anymore, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But anyway, moving on.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, in this case, Bernard liked girls. He had a crush on Tim Drake's hot stepmother, and that's about it for the romantic/sexual front. There were no other deep hidden secrets to uncover. No big deal. He's not wrong about the whole sexuality thing.
Okay, and you changed your mind is what we're getting at then, presumably. Because if you're admitting that you didn't originally imagine him to be that way, and you are now making him that way, then presumably you changed your mind. Is the long and the short of it. Which is which is fair, because honestly, I think it makes the character a little bit more interesting. But never mind. Moving on.
So then, what's my point? Why bring this up? I don't have a compelling reason other than to make two observations. First, in Tim's big coming out scene, no one but two fictional characters had to be retconned to make it happen. More than one beloved funny book character who had to be repurposed. And yes, this may be pride of authorship rearing its ugly head, but I like Bernard. Would it be too much to ask all of you crusading journalists of text and video to dig a little deeper in your investigations? Sure, Tim is the uncontested headline of the story, but Bernard's parallel transformation deserves a little mention, right?
Okay, I'm of two minds on this because number one, you don't need to convince journalists to um be all fawning over this. Jur Entertainment journalists in this day and age eat this shit up. That's why it went viral. Um, they love the representational arguments. So you're you're kind of pitching your article towards the wrong people. The people you genuinely need to be convincing are the fans of these characters, especially because most people saw this headline, and excluding the people who stupidly thought it was Dick Grayson because they're dumb, and didn't pay attention to the actual articles.
Although Dick does strike me as kind of bisexual. Just how funny.
Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. And I know the memes of the ambiguously gay duo are dead, but you can't tell me he worked with a masculine figure like Batman for all those years and never once thought to himself, why not? Because I mean,
Don, Dick was a fucking kid.
yeah, but he went through a teenage phase like everybody else.
Still fucking weird, man. My point.
I'm not saying he acted on it, but I am saying it wouldn't surprise me if it turned out that at one point in his puberty, Dick had a crush on Bruce.
Basically his son, dude. Just not even. We're not entertaining that. We're not entertaining that idea, man.
Okay, moving forward though.
No, it's just like
But
the whole circus thing and the costumes he wore. Let's be honest.
yeah, it's
Anyone
again,
remember, anyone remember the '70s Nightwing costume? Or was the
it's it wouldn't be entirely out of left field. Kind of like how I just giggled when um the Wolverine Cyclops thing happened because it's like, you know, on one level I'm annoyed because this is like the second time they've done this in X-Men vis-a-vis Iceman, but on the other, as long as your personalities don't change like Iceman's did, um people have been saying, why don't you two just get a room in regards to that love triangle for decades, so why not?
mm-hmm,
But yeah, the people you genuinely need to convince Mr. and I forget his name. Um
Willingham?
yeah, Mr. Willingham. The people you need to convince are not the journalists. The people you need to convince are the people who care about Tim Drake's continuity. Now, granted, as Brainstormer and I just went over, Tim Drake is kind of the Robin who exists in between the other ones, unfortunately, for all intents and purposes. Because Dick is the good boy, um, Jason is the edgy boy, and Damien is the problem child, spoiled brat. So like Tim Tim struggles for an identity most of the time. But being that as it may, there are people who care about Tim's continuity, and those are the people you need to be talking to. With Bernard, I think you can get away with it because A, you created the character, and B, it's in the same run as when he was first introduced. So it's not like there's 50 years worth of continuity you need to unravel. Um, but just throwing this out there once again, you wouldn't even need to undo the like 5 issues of continuity you've already established if you just allowed for bisexuality instead of just straight up flipping from straight to gay. Like, I know I become a broken record about this, but like 90% of all these, we're making this character gay now because reasons stories could be easily solved by just maybe they swing both ways some of the time.
Whatever preference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. Moving on.
Um, Second, unlike historical living people, fictional characters can be changed at a whim, and you can even go back in the past to do it. You can add evidence that there wasn't there before. You can remove evidence that was there before. You can redraw or reletter scenes to conform to the new reality, as someone online already has with.
You really, really shouldn't though, and you doing that to a character is dickish. Like we okay, how to describe this? If we are supposed to care about a character as an autonomous entity, then regardless of whether there's an empirical being out there or not, changing a character on a whim is basically like changing a human being on a whim. It'd be like randomly like doing genetic engineering on somebody to change their like hair color or eye color or something. Would be extremely ethically questionable if we did it to a real person, and it's extremely questionable if we do it to an idea. If we just tweak and strawman ideas, it's considered a intellectual faux pas. So if A is bad and B is bad, then presumably A plus B is bad. One would assume. If changing the genetics of a physical being is bad, and the strawmanning of an idea is also bad, then one assumes the revamping on a whim of a character is is bad to at least some degree, considering it's basically the combination of category A and category B. Not to mention, it makes you an extremely petty quasi-deity to this world you've created. And nobody likes a dickhead interventionist god. Especially not if this universe existed before you got there and you're just tweaking it. Moving forward.
Yeah. You can do anything you like because these characters don't actually exist and never did. This does, however, open up a larger discussion on the advisability of doing work for hire, knowing, or at least you should have known, that the new Leo creator can do anything it wants with your creations. Maybe we'll explore that someday. By the way, this article will likely inspire questions and comments. No guarantee on comments, but the questions can be dealt with in a future posting. Okay, so, yeah.
Okay, you, sir, just said that you like this character. And yet you're willing to reinvent him on a whim because, quote, it doesn't matter. You can't have it both ways, you know. Either you like this character as a being in his own rights, or you can treat him like a dickhead interventionist god and just change shit on a whim. How does your brain function with that much cognitive dissonance in it? This is what boggles me. Like either
I don't know. Like honestly, it's one of those articles I think really has no point at all. Tries to have a point but doesn't have one.
I'd agree. It's just the stuff. I can't get myself into this mindset where just I can do whatever I want because I'm God, yay, is an okay thing to do to a character. Like, if you're genuinely invested in a character, you should give a shit about what happens to them. That includes you showing up with an eraser going, this is your new reality now, sorry, derp.
Moving on.
Yeah.
This is the last thing. Everyone else kind of covered it.
I haven't seen most people reacting to it, actually, yet.
Well, I meant like, I guess, general audiences. It's the
Yeah, I mean, it did come out a couple days ago, so yeah.
Monday.
Yeah.
This is Marvel Studios Hawkeye official trailer. To be honest, Marvel has never really gotten my attention lately, so.
I've watched this once through already, and I'm both happy and surprised that I don't hate Kate Bishop yet. And it's setting this as like a Marvel story during Christmas, I think really helped it. Because I don't know if it's just that I'm displacing positive feelings I have towards the holidays onto this trailer, but it works and it doesn't feel anything like it did when they did this in the comics. So yay. Maybe this means that rather than just straight up copy what was wrong with the comic like they did with Captain Marvel, Marvel actually learned and is now actually going to bother to like make sure that the characters they produce in their movies are more well-rounded than the comic versions of these new characters. I hope. Because I wouldn't mind liking Kate Bishop if she turns out to be awesome. In fact, if it turns out that all of the previously social justice-y characters are no longer social justice-y by the end of this, then you'll get nothing but kudos from me. But anyway, moving on. Banana.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Banana.
This is the first Christmas we've had together in years.
I love you guys. I'm making up for some lost time.
Authorities are wondering if the masked vigilante who terrorized the city's underworld is back.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay, and this is the first thing that I like about this. They're not just sweeping under the rug that Ronin happened and the blip happened.
Right.
They're actually
No,
it's it seems like the majority of this show is going to be about addressing, holy shit, Clint, what did you do?
which makes sense. Here's the thing, though. If they're doing that, why the fuck didn't they do that for like Falcon the Winter Soldier? Because I mean, they tried to, but it kind of fucking sucked.
Because they had an agenda to push. With Hawkeye, I don't think they have quite as much of one. The only agenda they possibly could have pushed is Kate Bishop is the bestest ever, and she can outshoot him because reasons. But they didn't do that. At least not. Hopefully this is just going to be a fan service thing for Hawkeye. One can hope.
Yeah.
But
I'm still kind of upset that they did.
Go ahead.
I am still kind of not upset, but just kind of disappointed that the daughter of Hawkeye didn't become like it's like it's not
yeah.
It's just like Hawkeye's family was introduced in Age of Ultron, and we get like moments like in Infinity War, or not Infinity War, in the beginning of Endgame, and like see the aftermath of like what happens. It's just like I would prefer to see a lot more with his family. And again, I hope the show does this, but it also seems like it's not going to, which I'm kind of bummed about.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it seems though like we're only seeing clips from like the first episode of the series in this trailer, so maybe they'll pad it out more when we actually get the show. Other thing I was gonna say, the only thing about Kate Bishop being here is exactly what Brainstormer was just saying. Why isn't it his daughter rather than this new random character?
Sorry, no, I'm sorry for cutting off. It's just like some because you remember in the beginning of Endgame, like the prologue for Endgame is Hawkeye's teaching his daughter how to shoot arrows and stuff.
Also, different but not unrelated. It's kind of like, why are we introducing Riri Williams in Armor Wars when Morgan Stark already exists? Like, you gave Tony a daughter that could already be Ironheart if she felt like it, and yet you're gonna introduce Riri Williams anyway. Now, granted, again, they might fix Riri in the MCU. They might actually give her like a full-rounded character instead of just making her a stipend for whatever the writer wants to cynically complain about this week. But on the off chance they're going to do a one-to-one translation like they did with Captain Marvel, even though they shouldn't have, that's probably going to end up biting you in the ass. If you don't change the character enough to make her a well-rounded character, you are going to regret. But it seems like they have tweaked Kate Bishop to such a degree that she actually is her own person now, and not just whatever the writer feels like complaining about today.
Also, the actress Haley Steinfeld is a great actress.
Yeah,
I haven't seen her in much, but she is a good actress.
Yeah, she's very charismatic, and she's playing off of
Jeremy Renner
here really well, and I can totally buy the like camaraderie between them. Actually, in fact, this almost reminds me of Iron Man 3 with the random kid that helps Tony when he's on his PTSD bender. There,
Harley, I think.
Yeah.
Is it Harley?
I think so.
Either way.
Side note: at some point, they really should introduce.
They actually
that kid. They really should introduce that kid and Peter, because they're both kind of quasi sons of Tony Stark at this point.
They actually did bring that actor and that character back in at the end of Tony's funeral.
Yeah, I know he was in the funeral, but honestly, at some point, whenever Spidey is able to show up in things that aren't Sony produced again, they really should probably show them being like bros, because I imagine they would bond pretty solidly over how weird but also cool Tony was.
Yeah.
And things.
Anyway, Banana?
Banana.
The past has caught up with me.
Should we be worried?
No, it's nothing. I'll be home for Christmas. I promise.
It's the most wonderful time.
When I wore this suit, I made a whole lot of enemies.
Something I just noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Clint has hearing aids.
Or, see, I was gonna try and justify this, but
Well, no, it's like
arrows don't.
here's the thing. In the comics, Hawkeye's actually deaf.
Yeah, so are they gonna actually address that in this? That would be interesting.
That was the thing. Like, you know, oh, hello, Waylon Smithers. Okay, says what's up.
We actually have a guy going by Waylon Smithers in the comments. Excellent.
I don't. Is that a reference I should get, or?
Yes! It's a Simpsons reference. How?
I was never into The Simpsons.
I feel like I am Sideshow Bob, and that was just a rig. Ugh.
Well, it's not really a show I was into growing up.
Fair play, I guess, but for just sheer like meme getting potential, you should at least watch it once, or at least the early seasons, like the first 10.
I was more into Family Guy, honestly. So, when I grew up with Family Guy more than The Simpsons.
I suppose so. That makes sense because you're. Although still, part of me is like, do I strap him to a chair and Ludovico technique a bunch of Simpsons into him now?
Whatever. Does it really matter?
Yes,
It really
but
does.
later. Anyway, banana.
Yeah.
You're a Hawkeye.
Who the hell are you?
Some people have actually called me the world's greatest archer.
Are you one of those people?
It's the most wonderful.
Hey, babe, I should be back in a day or two.
Okay, I like that she gets excited when she sees him instead of dismissive. That helped me endear myself to her much better than it did in the comic. Because, like, I was terrified they were going to turn Hawkeye useless and then make her a Mary Sue, but it doesn't appear to be going that way, thankfully.
My big question is, how did Kate get the costume of Ronin? I'm sure it'll be explained. It's just like, you know,
Maybe she made her own? I don't know. Like, it doesn't look terribly complicated. She probably could make her own if she wanted to.
I have some cosplayers do it, so, you know. Anyway, I wonder how much of this was actually like their dialogue between each other was more or less improvised, because like of these two actors, I kind of don't doubt that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, shall we?
Yes.
Banana.
Banana.
Hang on a second. Things have gotten more complicated.
It's a little trippy to hear Christmas music this early, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. 4 months away, I guess.
Yep. But I mean, they've got a show at some point, so
yeah.
I guess they had to release this fairly early. But I would have waited until after Halloween if I were you, Marvel. Just saying.
All right. Wait, let's try this. Hopefully, it's not too SJW converged like the last few. Okay. Honestly, I don't think. Well, WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I don't think either were really SJW.
The only thing that was SJW-ish about WandaVision was the justification for why Doctor Strange didn't show up. We can't
outside influence, not really in.
Yeah, if we're looking for SJW things, their justification for not including Doctor Strange was complete bullshit and also counterproductive, as I've outlined many times, because Doctor Strange was a world-renowned neurosurgeon before, and neurologist before he became a sorcerer. So he's well versed in trauma.
Also,
and now he's one of the world's foremost magical experts. So if anyone's qualified to deal with magical trauma, it would be Doctor Strange. And also, Marvel, I'm gonna finish the rant first. If you genuinely wanted to make this about trauma and grief and shit, have you never heard of a psychological intervention done by professionals and friends on the behalf of someone who's been traumatized? But apart from that, WandaVision didn't have any SJW-isms in it. It was just very poorly written in the last episode. And fucking cock-blocked with no actual connections to Doctor Strange 2, except for maybe Agatha's teaching of Wanda. Falcon and Winter Soldier was lousy with it, though, so I'll give you Falcon and Winter Soldier.
It's technically a Captain America story, and let's be honest, if you're doing a Captain America story, it's going to get political.
They turned Antifa into anti-heroes, a form of the Flag Smashers. And they made a police brutality joke.
Like a good Don't. You froze there for like a good 30 seconds.
Did I?
Yeah.
I said they made Antifa anti-heroes by way of the Flag Smashers. They were really heavily forcing not just politics in general, but a very specific kind and worldview of politics.
But again, it's a Captain America story essentially. Thus, the
some politics I'll grant you, but that they did.
It's bad, obviously, but to me, it's bad because of like characters.
Well, I think it's honestly, I think the entire thing was poorly conceived because, frankly, what should have happened.
Yeah, the story itself doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah, what should have happened, and I will continue suggesting this until I'm blue in the face. But what should have happened is neither Bucky nor Sam takes the shield, and they become a buddy cop duo, essentially, trying to fill the void of Steve by teaming up with each other. Because they should know that neither of them is qualified to take the mantle of Steve over, but perhaps together they could, by combining their skills and talents, make up for one Captain America. But no, we have to aggrandize Sam because reasons, and...
I mean, he was made Captain America in the comics, and honestly, if anyone's going to be a new
Captain America... and that was poorly done as well.
Oh my god. Sam Wilson could make sense. Because again, and a line I'm going to throw out there is what he said in Winter Soldier. I do what he does, Steve, but slower. Like he and Steve are a lot alike. It's just, again, I'm not saying he should have been Captain America. I'm just saying, like, it could have been better. Honestly, again, I think the major problem with, like, these series is they're kind of too short and kind of gloss over a lot of things.
Yeah.
Really a lot of time to, quote-unquote, breathe.
Yeah, but in the long and the short of it, they shouldn't have replaced Captain America at all. It was a stupid idea when they did it in the comics, and it's still a stupid idea here. But Loki didn't really have any SJW-ism apart from obviously the gender flipping of Loki, but He can shapeshift, so yeah.
Yeah, again, my major problem, like the major thing I have, my major problem with the series so much is more so they're too short, or like they're too fast paced.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when Smithers, it's an incremental process. Things we would define as SJW today will, by the average person, not be considered SJW next year. The comics became SJW converged way before the films. I mean, yeah, we all know that.
Well, yes. I mean, we just went on like a 20-minute rant about how if they're gonna do a version of Ironheart, it should be Morgan Stark in the MCU because there's no reason to introduce Riri. And it would have made more sense for this show to be, for the new Hawkeye show to be focused more on Hawkeye teaching his daughter to be essentially Kate Bishop rather than introducing a new character, Kate Bishop. But like I said, or like I was trying to say, the problem with social justiceism isn't these characters existing, it's the fact that these characters are not even characters, they are just avatars for an ideology. If they make these characters full and rounded characters, then I don't have a problem with them existing. Like if they take the base version of Riri and turn her into someone that I can actually root for and identify with, then I don't care that she was at one point a very, very terribly written character.
Yeah, like sorry, no, it's just I remember watching like this. I think it's from. Yeah, it was one of the really old YouTubers that doesn't really do much anymore. Nim Headroom.
Oh yeah, I remember Mim. Mim's cool.
Yeah,
I've only talked to him an actual handful of times, but from what I remember of talking to him, he's cool.
Yeah, I watched a lot of his videos. Yeah, he did a cover. He like did some coverage on like some on a run called U.S. Avengers that had the daughter of Jensen, who was Antonia, but everyone called her Tony with like an I. And like she was told about like what happened to her father and like how Tony Stark was saved and stuff. And she's told that Tony Stark did everything he could to save her father, and she said she'll do better.
Yeah.
Like again, I'm aware that can come off as like
yeah, on the face of it, that's a bit cringy, but as someone who's going through trauma, I can totally see that being an organic reaction to things. Because that's the other problem with social justiceism, because it's enforced from without instead of organically arising from within the story. We have to shape these stories around this ideology rather than let's tell a story where some of these elements can exist within.
Right. I mean, like,
and it's just like before Captain Marvel came out and turned it into the shit show that it became. I had enough faith in the MCU to think they're not going to adapt the Kelly Sue DeConnick version. They're going to take more inspiration from the earlier Miss Marvel storylines. But unfortunately, because Marvel exists in Hollywood and Hollywood has a social justice bug up its ass, they tried to do a straight rendition of the Kelly Sue DeConnick version of Captain Marvel rather than the Miss Marvel version of Captain Marvel. And that was a terrible, terrible mistake. One that it seems, at least with Kate Bishop, that they've learned at least a little bit from. Because they seem to be tweaking Kate Bishop's character to make her less insufferable and less of a social justice mouthpiece and more of a three-dimensional character. And if they manage to do that with the social justice characters, then I don't care anymore. Because then essentially the difficult or annoying parts of social justice will have been opted out of.
Right.
Granted, it would still be better if they didn't, but playing the ball where it lies.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, banana.
Banana.
It's the most wonderful time This is too dangerous. Definitely not this one.
You don't have to say definitely like that. Holy shit! There are arrows more dangerous than that one?
I mean, I don't really have anything for this particular segment.
No.
Banana.
No.
It's just some Christmas.
I do like the tone they're shooting for. It almost reminds me of like a Home Alone.
Yeah.
Or if anyone has ever seen the movie Unaccompanied Minors, which I'm almost sure that only I am remembering,
Nope.
was about a group of kids who get locked in an airport on like Christmas Eve or something, and they basically become it's like take Breakfast Club, set it in an airport during the holidays, and add a bunch of shenanigans like from the end of Home Alone, and basically you have the movie.
Sounds familiar. I might have seen it when I was like super young, but never seen it since.
It had Miranda Cosgrove in it, and I can't remember who else it had in it, but I know she was in it.
The thing that kind of bugs me is it's releasing on November 24th.
Yeah, that's too early, especially if you're going for the Christmas theme.
Yeah, it's minor. Like it's either on or near Thanksgiving, is a thing.
Yeah, and take it from me, nobody is immediately ready for Christmas the day after or the day of Thanksgiving. You got to get at least a weekend.
Yeah, like the first week of December would have made sense.
Yeah, like if you're gonna do the Christmas theme, then at least have it like December 5th or something maybe.
Yeah. Okay. And
I could kind of understand it if this was one of those years where Thanksgiving was really, really late, like December 27th or something, and then like the weekend after would be around the time people would be in a Christmas mood, but yeah, it's too early.
Yeah. Waylon Smithers, the fact that everyone starts arguing which non-white male would make the best white male character replacement character is proof enough of the incremental acceptance of the SJW agenda.
It's not an agenda, dude. It's a worldview.
Yeah.
That's my only, because agenda makes it seem like it's organized and structured, and it's not. It's just a bunch of people who have a particular moralistic worldview.
Right. Also, that is kind of that whole non-white male thing. That more or less, well, it depends on what you're describing. Because for like, and don't I've had this before, like movies and stuff. More or less, that depends on like the caliber of the actor, like the merit of an actor.
Yeah, it
like,
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if an actor is non-white. It matters, are you casting them because they have the skills necessary to portray a role, or are you casting them because worldview?
Right. Like with Jeremy Wright playing James Gordon in the Batman movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good actor, and he really fit, and he can kind of fit the role, so nobody cares. Nor did anyone care when Billy D. Williams back in the Tim Burton movies played Harvey Dent. And I'm betting that 90% of the people who saw Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent in the first two Burton movies really, really would have rather seen him as Two-Face in the Schumacher movies than whoever they actually casted.
What was it? Fuck. I can't remember.
It's the Schumacher movies. Nobody cares.
Right. I have started to enjoy Thanksgiving way better than Christmas now. It's always crazy for me and my family, so
I just can't. I can't vibe with that, unfortunately. Halloween and Christmas are the two best days of the year, and yes, I put them on equal footing. for different reasons, though, because
Wayland Smithers, I know it's a worldview. There are also institutions and organizations that push this incrementally. Yeah, but
it's not like a conspiracy. It's just a bunch of people acting in the same worldview. Is the thing that they're doing what they consider to be their version of the greater good is the problem,
yeah.
and that's why it's very difficult to deconvert them because they think they're in the moral right to do what they do.
Yeah. Although Christmas having the Christ component is the most important part. I mean,
Well, I mean, if you really want to get into it, and you open this door, so now I can do it. Most of the things we associate with Christmas is stuff we borrowed from the Celts and the Germans before the advent of Christianity. And if it weren't for Charles Dickens, we probably wouldn't even have Christmas in the modern conception. And what's more, when the Protestant Reformation happened, people like Cromwell actually wanted to outlaw Christmas because it was too pagan. So the funny thing I always say is whenever somebody complains about the war on Christmas, I laugh because it's usually the fundamentalist people, the fundamentalist Christians who start that shit, and they're the ones that actually did at one point have a war on Christmas because it was too pagan. Like for me, I'm polytheistic occultist. I don't give a fuck about Christianity, but I love Christmas because it is so layered with so many layers of pre-Christian polytheism, essentially. When you get right down to it.
right, I have heard that as well. And Smithers.
Wayland, if you want to make your way over to my channel, The Authenticator, I actually have an hour-long Christmas special where I go through a couple pieces of Christmas media and kind of explain the folklore behind different Christmas traditions, if that's something that interests you.
Yeah. Oh, we are done very early.
Yeah, and I say that, Wayland, because I think this might be the first time we've seen you in chat here, and that means you're probably not quite as familiar with either of our main channels. This is a channel we share because we do the podcast together, but we both have our own channels.
Yeah.
Well.
Like legitimately, it's our names right now, like you see on screen right now.
Yes.
I do like rewrites and stuff, like for movies and things.
Yeah, and I'm weird in that I talk about philosophy and politics and magic and the occult and geek stuff and all sorts of other things on my channel. And also, I've recently started doing covers of various different classic songs, if that's something that tickles your fancy as well. And I do a fuck ton of guest appearances on other people's channels that I also organize into a playlist. So there's plenty of content from me if you're interested.
All right. Yeah. So I guess final thoughts on Hawkeye. I mean, at this point, honestly, Marvel's kind of burned me out.
I'm not really interested in Hawkeye because I'm like I just got through explaining. Weird mystical stuff is kind of my forte, and weird cosmic stuff, especially in comics. So there doesn't appear to be a bunch of that in this, so I'm probably going to skip it. Though I might watch just to make sure that they don't fuck up Kate Bishop like they did in the comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So since we are, so with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Fuck all the way off, folks.